Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, friends. I was just talking to myself. I need a better place to do these lives, but who cares? No one cares. Um, appreciate anybody who's on here. Why did I start these lives? Well, one, today's just gonna be a little bit of an off the cuff, actually a lot of bit of off the cuff. Because I like somewhat prepared, but not really prepared. Um, but the reason I started these lives, let me take a step back. So, anybody who follows human design follows everybody who does human design. And there was a woman who was commenting on what's coming in 2027. So, in 2027, we're actually shifting the background frequency. The background frequency of life is shifting in 2027. So, right now, we're in the right angle or the cross of planning, and the cross of planning has been in motion for the last 400 years, and it's been all about the tribe, the bargain, the institutions that be a part of, like being a part of something bigger in order to feel protected, in order to feel structure, in order to feel connected to other people. Well, what's shifting in 2027 is that we're moving into the cross of the sleeping phoenix, and it is going to be all about self empowerment. It's going to be all about how we take care of ourselves, how we find, oh, hi, Myra, how we find our own truth, our own authority in a space where it is all about finding our own way, our individual way. Oh, hey, Lainey. Hi, gorgeous. Um, in that uh, class I was sitting through, she was talking about how moving forward, the exchange, the currency that we're going to be exchanging. Oh, hi, Cole. Is energy, and we can always think about energy is the same of money, but that's what we're going to be exchanging in starting in 2027. Not that we're not doing that already. And to Myra's point, you can start to feel this shift where we all are moving a little bit more into our individuality, where we're all moving into our own self empowerment. It tells me my internet is unstable. So hopefully this goes through. I mean, why wouldn't we have a shit show of a technology problem? Um, but that's what really this is all about. And so, speaking of frequency, it was all about how we can start exchanging our frequency, how we can all start putting ourselves out there if we haven't already, or putting ourselves out there more in order for each other to feel the frequency, to experience the frequency, to see the frequency, hear it, whatever the case may be. And so I actually tend to do better when I'm off the cuff and I'm just responding, whether it be to questions, to comments, whatever the case may be. But I thought today, one, I hope these aren't too long because I have a tendency to ramble, but I'm going to keep myself in check. But today is really all about just kind of talking about my frequency, right? So, the Substack, the performance code is all about borrowed frequency. That's the theme. And the borrowed frequency is where we tend to meet our resistance. And that's not to say when we find our own frequency that we're not going to experience resistance. It's more about when you are living in your true frequency, you meet the resistance that's meant for you. You meet the things that are meant for you as opposed to trying to fight through life through the lens of a borrowed frequency and meeting way more resistance than you're intended to have. That's why life feels so stressful. That's why life feels so overwhelming. That's why life feels all the things, because we tend to live through the idea or live through the lens of a borrowed frequency because we don't necessarily understand our true frequency. And we find that, at least in part, by learning your human design. So I thought today I'd spend a little bit for anybody out there who doesn't really know me, to get to know me, to hear my frequency. You'll notice that one, it is always off the cuff. Two, I tend to be very informal. I might drop some language on here, provided Substack lets that. But just to give everybody kind of a context for who I am, so my name is Lauren Ammon. My story is that I was an athlete growing up. And as we get farther into the idea of borrowed frequency, my time as an athlete will become very relevant because I've found through going through my own story, which Myra helped me with. Anybody who is looking to really figure out if you're a business owner or a coach, a consultant, a fractional professional, if you're looking for that one offer, you might want to reach out to Myra because she's great in that respect. She goes through your story. And what I found in my story was that I was actually living through a lot of borrowed frequency when it came to being athlete, which fed into my adult life. So when I graduated from college and I was forced to retire from swimming because it was over, that was the sport that I did. I found myself in this crossroads. Went into corporate America, found myself in the human resources space. Had a great time there, but found that very quickly it wasn't the space for me. Yet 15 years later, I had to figure out what the hell I was going to do. um, Found being a coach. So I took professional coaches training, got into coaching, started my own business, found that there was something still missing. Fast forward, someone introduced me to human design, my financial advisor, actually. And then since finding human design, that has been the story, right? I've always been in a pursuit as a generator. Didn't know this prior to my human design, but as a generator, always in pursuit of who I am, trying to figure out who I am. That's what generators are after. And I found that the modality of human design was the one that helped me understand, having taken all kinds of personality assessments in the human resources space, trying to figure out who the hell I was. Human design was the first one that really kind of pinpointed, oh, that's why I feel like I'm always proving myself. Oh, that's why I never really feel my own emotions, or I avoid emotion. Or, oh, that's why I feel I'm always influenced by other people because I have an open G center and I don't have a natural direction. I'm always finding it and always looking for love and all the happy horse shit that comes, or that came with living through my borrowed frequency. So that's what we're going to talk about. It's going to be a journey. For those who join, would love for you to ask questions, to throw things out there, throw insights, do all the things, because as a generator, I love to respond, and love responding in the moment, off the cuff, and not really having things planned. Um, Sorry, I have a list of things I wanted to cover, so that's why I'm looking down. So, who is this really for? So, this is really for the high achievers out there who constantly feel like they are always going, always trying to prove, always trying to make it to the next step, and yet feeling really unfulfilled in the process. It's for those people who are always doing something and feel like they're never really reaching the pinnacle, or they felt that if they've reached the pinnacle of what they thought they wanted, they got there and they're like, yeah, this isn't it. This is not what I want. And that constant, like, why in the hell does this always feel so hard? Well, it feels so hard because you're living through a bar frequency. That's no blame, that's no shame, that's no guilt. That's simply human nature, is because we weren't taught, coached, or encouraged to live through our own frequency. One, because our parents didn't have it, our teachers didn't have it, or any other significant influence in our lives didn't have our roadmap. Not only did they not have our roadmap, they weren't taught how to use it. They weren't taught how to raise someone else through that person's energy, because we as parents, I have two young boys myself, or as teachers or as coaches or as any influence in a young person's life, what do? We have a tendency to coach, teach, parent, whatever, lead them through our energy, not through their energy. And oh, by the way, because we were never taught our true frequency, we're parenting, coaching, teaching, whatever, leading, raising them through our borrowed frequency. So they learn to live through their borrowed frequency, making things harder for them when they get to be adults. And the whole cycle just perpetuates. Hello, generational trauma, right? And that's where it stems from, is that we're all living through our borrowed frequency. We don't understand it. And so then we kind of extend that to other people until we learn our true frequency. And things that we'll uncover, some of the things that are really important to me as we go through this is, again, just because you find your true frequency doesn't mean that life is going to be all sunshine and roses and happy horseshit. That's not what life is about. Life isn't necessarily meant to be easy. Part of the, whole human design is that we are here to struggle. And we're here to struggle to find our passion and purpose. Why do you think it's so hard that, when we embark on doing things that we think are meant for us or that we know we can achieve, it's really hard? Well, it's hard because it's meant to be a struggle. And that's what we're going to talk about is that, this is all about finding your true frequency because as we move into 2027 and the background frequency changes, living in your own true frequency will become even more important, or you will continue to be lost trying to find direction through these gurus, these influencers, right? That's not what 2027 and the next 400 years are all about. It's finding truth, harmony, resonance, and our own power and our own frequency. And that's what this is all about. I wrote down topics. I don't know why I wrote down topics. But as we move through this and as things come up and as we ask more questions or we have more connections, that's where, kind of the content for all of this will feed that. And Lainey just says, it sounds like it's going to be a long 2 years. Yeah, it is going to be a long 2 years. The next 2 years will feel really, really bumpy because we're going through this phase of we've been part of institutions, and by institutions I mean systems like religions, and school systems and things like institutions that were designed to keep us together, to keep us in this one um distinct way, so that if we were a part of that tribe, we knew what to expect, we knew our needs were going to be met, there was a bargain being exchanged. And that's what's changing, is that the institutions, you start to see kind of institutions falling away. I mean, I'll use the Catholic Church. I am a Catholic. You start to see kind of people kind of migrating away from the institution. The institution, the way that the institution was set, the bargain that was initially set by that institution isn't necessarily working for people anymore. And you start to see kind of deviation away from that, starting people stepping into their own power, trying to be their own authority. And that doesn't mean we all go out and be assholes and we're not connected to other people, because that's not the point either. We're not here to just stand in our own power, not give a shit about anybody else. That's not the point. The point is that we are all resonant in our own frequencies and we understand what that is, and we allow others to stand and resonate in their own frequency, finding connection and being two separate entities coming together, and creating another kind of like energetic quantum. And so we'll get into all that because that's a lot of big, fancy scientific words. But that's what it's really all about. Myra says, I seriously love that. And we are all being fed that life should be easy. No, sometimes it's horseshit. That's one of the things, when we talk about kind of differentiating myself when it comes to human design, is that when I look at that, because I have the channel of judgment, and when I look at bigger systems, I can kind of see what's working and what isn't. That's what that energy is designed for. And what I see out there is, other human design practitioners who are very good, who are doing what they think is right in their own energy, is to always talk about that we're here to be in flow, and that once we find a design, it's all about ease. And no, that's not necessarily how it's going to work, because one, it takes 7 years to decondition from the borrowed frequency that we've been living through. Now think about that. How many 7-year cycles have you lived through up to this point? I'm 43 years old. That means I've lived through 6-7 year cycles. Going 7 years, all of my magic and deconditioning isn't just going to go away in 7 years. No, there's going to be layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of deconditioning that needs to happen. Just because, I got here in 6 doesn't mean it's going to get rid in one cycle. And we're constantly living and interacting with other people's energy. So every time we meet someone new, we figure out that their energy interacts with our energy, and we've got to figure out, are they influencing me in a way that leads me to live through borrowed energy, or am I standing in my own true frequency? So there's always something at play when it comes to energy. And that's the one thing to remember, is that you're here to live as yourself, but understand that you're always constantly being energetically influenced by what's around you. Cole says, I love talking about floaties, but I'm sure as hell not in flow all the time. Yes, that's exactly it. And that's a great point, Cole, is that, I'm not here to tell you, there's always about struggle. No, I'm simply here to say even though you learn your true frequency or you find your true frequency and you live through your true frequency, yes, life will bring its own flow, the flow that's intended for you. But that doesn't always mean the flow is going to be easy. And you're right, Cole. Talking about flow and ease brings a bit of relief. It brings a little bit of validation that, hey, it is possible, but it's not all the time, as you say. And Myers says there's a research every 7 years, there's an identity shift that we need to become aware of. And what you are doing can help raise that awareness as well. Absolutely. Because I'm going to throw a real wrench into there is that you go through these 7 years, you're also going through some energetic influences that you don't necessarily know is happening in the background. So as you're learning your true frequency, you're still being influenced by the energy around you. And yeah, at the end of that 7 years, you can kind of start to feel that shift and really coming back to yourself. And that's what learning about borrowed frequency is all about. It's all about coming back to yourself. You're not broken. You don't need to be fixed. It's simply that you've learned to live through energy that's not intended for you through no fault of your own, simply because you weren't raised by those who are aware of what energy you're here to live with. Oh, by the way, they weren't raised to live through the energy that they're here to live with. And so that's what this is all about. It's all about empowering everyone to step in their true frequency, but to also understand you are here to be connected to other people. So while you stand in your true frequency, that doesn't mean that you can't be connected or you shouldn't be connected to other people. It simply means that you start to understand how to make decisions as yourself, how to live as yourself, and to remove the expectations of who you should be, who you think you need to be, or to make decisions in order to make other people feel good or better. Because when you deny yourself your energy, you start to carry around that load and it goes into your cells and you carry it around until you've figured out how to release it. And as we go through this journey, I am more than willing to share my journey and some of the instances in terms of where borrowed energy has really run my life and where I have run into a ton of challenges because I didn't understand how I was making decisions or the energy that was influencing the decisions that were going against who I am. For anybody who knows me and knows my human design, because some of my lovely connections on here, one, I hate to call you all as followers. We're connections on here know that I'm a 1-3 highly spontaneous pure generator. So there are times I can be wildly impulsive and I've been told and self-absorbed. And I've been told that a lot of my life. And so part of my borrowed frequency is that I see that as a bad thing. And that I often make decisions going against what I know to be intuitively correct for me because I don't want to piss anyone off or seem selfish or seem self-absorbed when really in actuality, that self-absorption energy is here to keep me alive. It's here to aid my survival. And sometimes that it is like the airplane analogy, right? We need to put on our masks before we help other people. And I've started to learn that sometimes my self-absorption can actually be a very good thing. Despite the fact that it may lead others to feel really uncomfortable when I make a decision through my true frequency. So that's what we're here to talk about. Thank you so much for joining me. Um, this is really designed to be sessions for all of us, right? So what I've learned in going through this is that when I support people in going through their human design, learning their human design, learning their true frequency, the more that I hear their experience of their energy, it helps me connect the dots and to really personalize the logic behind the energetic system that is human design. And one thing you will hear continuously from me is that human design is not dogma. It is not dogma. It is not meant to be dogma. It is not meant for those of us who learn it to follow it to a T. It's a starting point. What I like to, I'm a runner, or was, I guess I should say. in that it's the starting line. It's a point at which we can say, okay, I have an understanding of who I'm here to be. I now have to go live it to see how it actually works for me. What I always say is that human design is the what and the why. Once you learn your human design, you learn your true frequency, you have to figure out the how. As somebody who is a nearly certified expert in human design, I can support you in unraveling the how. But any answers would be through my energy, would be through my 1-3 pure generator energy. That may not be answers for you. But what I can do is give you the what and the why. And together, we can figure out ways for you to go figure out the how. But I am not here to give you all of your answers. That's the other thing that you will hear continuously is that I'm not going to give you answers. I will give you answers about the energetic mechanics, but I can't give you answers as to how they actually work for you, because that is what human design is all about, is to figure out how the energy mechanics work for you. And I was remiss in welcoming Karen when she joined. So Karen, hello. Thank you so much for joining. So with that, we will just continue to dive into energy mechanics. We will continue to dive into borrowed frequency examples. If you have questions, there are links in all of my posts on Substack to submit questions that you might want answered in these sessions or topics you want to cover. Throw them my way. My spontaneous generator energy loves that sort of stuff. So I hope you all have a wonderful Thursday. And thank you so much for joining. Toodaloo, friends.